You know that feeling, right? You're just driving, trying to fall asleep, whatever. When out of nowhere, your brain decides to replay that one time you tripped up the stairs or called someone by the wrong name. We all have these moments that make us physically cringe even years later. Well, today, we're going to dive into the science of why our brains are so obsessed with these small, awkward memories.
It is such a weird thing our brains do, isn't it? You could land a huge promotion or give the wedding toast of a lifetime, and those memories, they can feel kind of fuzzy. But that one time you confidently waved back at a stranger who was actually waving to the person behind you? Oh yeah, that memory is in crystal clear, high-definition 4K. So let's figure out what is going on here. So, there's actually a name for this whole thing, your cringe reel. It's like your own personal blooper reel of every mortifying moment, and it's always ready to play at the worst possible times. And look, if you have one, you are in very good company. This isn't some personal flaw. It's just a fundamental, kind of quirky part of being human. All right, so why does this cringe reel get so much airtime in our heads? To solve this little mystery, we first have to understand what our brain is actually built to do. And here's a little hint. It's not to make us feel happy and confident all the time. And that right there is the first big piece of the puzzle. Our brains are basically ancient survival machines. Think about it. For our ancestors, belonging to the group was literally a matter of life and death. If you got kicked out of the tribe, you were on your own against, well, everything. So our brains evolved to be hypersensitive to social threats. Things like rejection, shame, and yup, you guessed it, embarrassment. This survival instinct created something called the negativity bias. You can think of it like this. Our brains are like Teflon for positive experiences. They just slide right off. But for negative ones, they're pure Velcro. It's an evolutionary feature, right? It made sure we didn't repeat dangerous mistakes. The only problem is that ancient software can't really tell the difference between a real threat, like a saber-toothed tiger, and accidentally saying you too to a waiter who just told you to enjoy your meal. And honestly, this is such an empowering way to think about it. That cringy memory that keeps popping up, it's not your brain trying to torture you. It's just an old, outdated safety alarm trying to protect you. And once you see it as just a mechanism, not some deep personal failing, you can actually start to work with it instead of against it. Okay, now let's get into the really fascinating neuroscience behind this. We all know social blunders feel painful, but how similar is that feeling to actual physical pain? Well, a pretty groundbreaking study decided to find out. So back in 2015, researchers put a bunch of people into an fMRI scanner, one of those big brain imaging machines, and they had them relive two different types of memories, a really painful social experience, like a horrible breakup, and a really painful physical one, like breaking a bone. They wanted to see if the brain treated these relived memories differently. And what they found, well, it's pretty wild. When they asked people about the initial event, they rated the pain of both the social and the physical moments as being equally intense. But and this is the key. When they relived the memory inside the scanner, the pain they reported for the social memory was way higher. They actually felt the social pain more intensely the second time around. The brain scan showed us exactly why. And this is the core difference. Reliving social pain lit up the brain's affective pain system. That's the part that processes the emotional, ugh, this feels awful part of pain. But when they relived physical pain, it mostly activated the sensory system, the parts that just remember the location and the quality of the pain, not the hurt itself. Now, for all you science lovers out there who want to dig a little deeper, you can see the specific pathways here. Reliving social pain uses what's called mental state processing. It fires up the part of your brain that thinks about your own feelings and tries to guess what other people are thinking about you. Physical pain, that uses body state processing, which is basically just trying to remember the physical facts. So if you're going to remember one thing from all this science, let it be this. When you remember breaking your arm, your brain recalls the facts of what happened. But when you remember that humiliating moment, your brain doesn't just remember it. It makes you feel the emotional sting all over again. And that right there is why it sticks so hard. Okay, so now we know why these memories hurt so much when we think about them. But that doesn't really explain why we keep thinking about them in the first place, does it? So let's look at the psychology of how this whole thing becomes a feedback loop. So say hello to something called the spotlight effect. This is that nagging feeling that everyone is watching you and judging you and will definitely 100% remember that time you stumbled over your words. The reality is we massively overestimate how much other people are paying attention to our little mistakes. Most people are way too worried about their own spotlight to even notice ours. But because of that spotlight effect, we tend to ruminate. We play it over and over. And every single time you replay that cringe memory, you are basically practicing it. You're strengthening the neural pathway to that memory, carving a deeper and deeper groove in your brain. And that just makes it even easier for your mind to slip into that same replay loop the next time. So I know, it sounds a little bleak, right? We're wired for survival, our brains can re-feel social pain, and we accidentally strengthen these memories by obsessing over them. But here is the really good news. You can absolutely retrain this reflex. You can take control of the story. So here are 4 actual techniques backed by science to break that cycle. First, try shifting from judgment to curiosity. Instead of, oh, why did I do that? Ask, what did I learn from that? Second, use grounding. Feel your feet on the floor, name 5 things you can see. It pulls your brain out of the past and right into the present. Third, reframe the story. And fourth, when that cringe reel starts playing, consciously replace it with a memory of a win, no matter how small. And here's a really powerful pro tip for that reframing piece. Instead of thinking, I was so awkward, actually write the story down as if it happened to someone else. Like, he stumbled on his words, then took a breath and continued. It sounds simple, but that little shift creates this critical emotional distance. It signals to your brain that this is just old data, not a current threat. And maybe the most important reframe of all is this one right here. The fact that you feel embarrassed about something you did in the past is actually a really good thing. It's a signal that you've grown. It means you have a different set of standards and skills today. The person who's cringing is not the same person who did the cringy thing. So let's just end with this thought. The next time your cringe reel starts to play, what if you didn't see it as a failure you should be ashamed of, but as a receipt, a confirmation that you've learned something, that you've grown, and that you've become a better version of yourself? What would change if you saw it not as a source of shame, but as proof of your own evolution?